The morning sun cast long shadows across the peaceful settlement of New Haven when the first plasma blast hit the communication tower. Lisa Martinez was drinking her coffee in the diplomatic quarters when the explosion shook the building and sent her cup crashing to the floor. She ran to the window and saw smoke rising from the center of town. What the hell was that? She whispered to herself, but deep down she already knew. The Vorthan Empire had finally come for the Catherians. Lisa grabbed her emergency communicator and tried to reach the colony's defense center. Static filled her ears. She tried again, switching to different frequencies, but got nothing. The communication tower was their main link to the outside galaxy, and now it was gone. She rushed outside and saw people running in every direction. The Catherians were tall, thin beings with pale blue skin and large eyes. They moved with grace, even in panic, but Lisa could see the fear on their faces. These were scientists, doctors, and philosophers. They had no idea how to fight a war. Another explosion rocked the settlement, this one closer. Lisa looked up and saw the dark shapes of Vorthan warships moving across the sky like storm clouds. Red beams of energy shot down from the ships, hitting buildings and turning them into rubble. The Vorthans were not trying to capture the colony. They were trying to destroy it. Lisa ran toward the colony's administrative center, dodging falling debris and helping injured Catherians along the way. She found colony leader Zethara in his office, staring at a tactical display that showed red dots surrounding their world. His long fingers trembled as he pointed at the screen. 37 ships, he said in his soft voice. They came from hyperspace an hour ago. We tried to negotiate, but they only sent one message. Surrender or die. Lisa studied the display. The Vorthan fleet was massive, designed for conquest. Each ship was twice the size of anything the Catherians had ever built. Their own defense force consisted of 3 small patrol boats that were already burning wrecks on the screen. What about the other colonies? Lisa asked. Can they send help? Zethara's shoulders sagged. The Catherian Republic has no military ships. We gave up war centuries ago. We thought intelligence and diplomacy would protect us. He looked at Lisa with his large, sad eyes. We were wrong. The building shook again as another blast hit nearby. Through the windows, Lisa could see Vorthan drop ships landing in the streets. Armored soldiers poured out, their weapons already firing. The Catherians who tried to run were cut down without mercy. We need to evacuate the civilians, Lisa said, her military training taking over. Do you have underground shelters? Yes, but they will find them eventually. The Vorthans are thorough in their conquest. Zethara activated an emergency broadcast. All citizens must go to the emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Lisa watched the tactical display as more Vorthan ships entered orbit. The enemy was bringing in everything they had. This was not just a raid or a quick strike. They planned to stay. There is one option, Lisa said slowly. I can send a distress signal to the Terran Federation. Zethara stared at her. The humans? But they are so far away. The nearest human outpost is 3 weeks' travel, even at maximum speed. It's the only chance we have, Lisa replied. The Vorthans won't expect human intervention. They think we're just traders and diplomats. The colony leader hesitated. The Catherians had heard stories about human military power, but they were a proud species. Asking for help went against everything they believed about solving problems. Peacefully. Another explosion, closer this time, made the decision for him. Do it, he said. Lisa activated her emergency beacon, the one every human diplomat carried. It would send a priority message directly to Terra Station Prime, bypassing all the normal diplomatic channels. She typed quickly, her fingers flying over the keyboard. This is Ambassador Lisa Martinez, diplomatic liaison to the Catherian Republic. New Haven colony is under attack by Vorthan Empire forces. 37 enemy warships in orbit. Colony defense. Force destroyed, requesting immediate military assistance. Situation critical. She paused, then added, These people saved my life when my ship crashed here 2 years ago. They're good people. They don't deserve this. The message transmitted in a burst of encoded data, racing across space toward human territory. Lisa stared at the screen, knowing that help was weeks away. The Vorthans would finish their conquest long before any human ship arrived. "Now what?" Zathara asked. "Now we fight," Lisa said. "I know you're not warriors, but sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love." She helped Zathara organize the evacuation. The Catherians moved with surprising efficiency once they understood what needed to be done. They carried their children and elderly to the underground shelters, along with important research data and medical supplies. Lisa found herself thinking about her time on New Haven. She had come here as a simple diplomatic observer, but the Catherians had welcomed her like family. They had shared their knowledge freely, teaching her about their advanced medical techniques and peaceful philosophy. When she had been injured in a shuttle accident, their doctors had saved her life using treatments that human medicine could not provide. The Vorthans, she knew, cared nothing for such things. They saw only weakness in the Catherian way of life. To them, a species that chose peace over war was simply prey waiting to be conquered. As the sun set over New Haven, Lisa stood on the roof of the administrative center and watched the enemy forces advance. Vorthan soldiers moved through the streets, setting up defensive positions and herding civilians toward detention centers. Their ships continued to bombard any building that might house resistance. She activated her communicator and tried to reach the human merchant ship that had brought supplies last month. Dead silence. The Vorthans were jamming all frequencies. "Lisa Martinez," a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Yethanol, the colony's chief medical officer. "The children are asking for you. They want to know if the humans are really coming." Lisa looked at the kind doctor, then at the burning city below. "Tell them yes," she said. "Tell them the humans are coming, and when they get here, the Vorthans will be sorry they ever heard of New Haven." She hoped she was right. Somewhere in space, her message was racing toward human territory at the speed of light. But would it arrive in time? And would the humans care enough about one small colony to risk a war with the Vorthan Empire? Lisa Martinez had never been more afraid, and she had never been more determined to find out. Admiral Jake Morrison was reviewing supply reports in his office when the priority alert chimed on his communication system. The red light flashed 3 times, which meant an emergency message from a diplomatic station. He pressed the button and listened to Lisa Martinez's voice crackling through the speakers. 37 enemy warships, he repeated to himself after the message ended. He had met Lisa Martinez once at a diplomatic function. She was a former Marine who had chosen the diplomatic corps after her service ended. If she said the situation was critical, then it was. Morrison called up the tactical display of that sector of space. New Haven was 3 weeks away at maximum hyperspace speed. The Vorthan Empire controlled most of the territory around it. This was not going to be a simple rescue mission. His door chimed, and Captain Amy Rodriguez entered. She was the commanding officer of the USS Defiant, Morrison's fastest destroyer. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her eyes were sharp with intelligence. "Admiral, we just received the same distress signal. Are we responding?" Morrison studied the star charts. "The politicians will want to debate this for weeks. They'll form committees and hold meetings while those people die." He looked at Rodriguez. "What do you think about Protocol 7? Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Protocol 7 was the emergency mobilization order that allowed fleet commanders to act without waiting for approval from Earth. It was designed for situations where human lives were in immediate danger and time was critical. "The Catherians aren't human," Rodriguez pointed out. "No, but they're our allies, and Lisa Martinez is human. She's trapped down there with them." Morrison made his decision. "I'm activating Protocol 7. We're taking the 3rd Fleet." Within an hour, alarm bells were ringing throughout Terra Station Prime. Ship commanders received their orders and began preparing for immediate departure. The space station's docking bays filled with activity as crews loaded supplies and ammunition. Captain Steve Johnson of the USS Thunderbolt was in the middle of engine maintenance when the alert came. His ship was a heavy cruiser designed for long-range missions and fleet actions. He called his engineering team together. "We need to be ready for hyperspace in 4 hours," he told them. "I don't care if you have to use spare parts and prayer. Make it happen." His chief engineer, a grizzled veteran named Pete Williams, grinned. "You heard the captain. We've got Cytherians to save and Vorthons to kill. Let's get to work." Similar scenes played out across the fleet. The USS Retribution, commanded by Captain Lisa Chun, was taking on extra Marines. The USS Vengeance, under Captain Mark Davis, was loading additional torpedo tubes. Every ship was pushing their crews to maximum effort. Morrison stood in the station's main command center, watching the preparations. His operations officer, Commander Janet Brooks, approached with a data pad. "Admiral, we have 47 ships ready for immediate deployment. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 heavy cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 14 support vessels. Total crew complement is 23,000. Morrison nodded. It was the largest fleet he had ever commanded, but he had a feeling they would need every ship. The Vorthons were known for their aggressive tactics and superior numbers. They had conquered a dozen worlds in the past 5 years, always using overwhelming force. "What about the politicians?" Brooks asked. "They're going to be angry when they find out we deployed without authorization." "Let them be angry," Morrison replied. "I'd rather face a court-martial than explain why we let innocent people die while we waited for paperwork." The Admiral activated the fleet communication system. Every ship in the Third Fleet would receive his message simultaneously. He had commanded these officers for years, and he knew they would follow him into hell if necessary. "This is Admiral Morrison to all ships. In 12 hours we will depart for the Cytherian system. Our mission is simple: protect our allies and drive out the Vorthon invaders. The enemy has 37 warships, but they're not expecting us. They think the Cytherians are helpless, and they think we're too far away to matter." He paused, looking at the tactical display that showed the route to New Haven. "They're wrong on both counts. The Cytherians are under our protection now, and we're going to show the Vorthons what happens when you attack our friends. We'll hit them fast and hard, and we won't stop until every last one of their ships is destroyed or running for home." The response was immediate. Every ship in the fleet acknowledged the order with enthusiasm. These were career military officers who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. They understood that sometimes you had to fight to protect what was right. Captain Rodriguez contacted Morrison on a private channel. "Admiral, intelligence reports suggest the Vorthons have been watching our activities for months. They may know we're coming." Morrison considered this. The Vorthons were not stupid. They had spies throughout the galaxy, and they would certainly be monitoring human military communications. But that might actually work in their favor. "Good," he said. "Let them know we're coming. Maybe they'll realize they bit off more than they can chew and withdraw before we get there." But Morrison knew better. The Vorthons were proud and arrogant. They believed their military was superior to everyone else's, including the humans. They had never faced a full human battle fleet in open combat, and they underestimated what Earth's military could do when properly motivated. As the hours passed, the fleet prepared for departure. Supply ships loaded food, water, and medical supplies. Marine transports took on extra troops and equipment. The mobile repair stations prepared for extended operations far from home. In the officers' mess of the USS Defiant, Captain Rodriguez briefed her senior staff. "The Vorthons are known for their shock tactics. They hit hard and fast, trying to break enemy morale before the real fighting begins. It works against most species, but they've never tried it against humans." Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Bob Carter, studied the intelligence reports. "Their ships are larger than ours, but they're built for intimidation rather than efficiency. Our ships are faster and more maneuverable. Plus, we've got something they don't," added the ship's Marine commander, Major Tony Kim. "We've got experience fighting dirty. The Vorthons are used to fighting civilized species who follow rules." "Humans don't always follow rules," Rodriguez smiled grimly. "That's exactly what I'm counting on." 12 hours after receiving Lisa Martinez's distress call, the Third Fleet departed Terra Station Prime. 47 ships entered hyperspace simultaneously, their destination set for the Cytherian system. The journey would take 3 weeks, but Morrison had already decided they would push their engines to the limit. As the fleet raced through hyperspace, Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the USS Dominion. He thought about Lisa Martinez, trapped on a world under siege. He thought about the Cytherians, peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. And he thought about the Vorthons, who believed that might made right. They were about to learn a very painful lesson about what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. 3 days had passed since Lisa Martinez sent the distress signal, and the situation on New Haven was getting worse every hour. The Vorthon forces had taken control of most of the colony's surface, herding civilians into detention camps and stripping the research facilities of anything valuable. Lisa crouched in the ruins of what used to be the colony's main hospital, helping Dr. Yathinel treat wounded Cytherians. The medical scanner in her hands beeped softly as she checked a young Cytherian child for internal injuries. The little girl's large eyes stared up at her with trust, despite the terror of the past few days. "The bleeding has stopped," Lisa told the doctor, "but she needs proper surgery." Dr. Yathinel nodded sadly. "The Vorthons destroyed our main surgical suite yesterday. We are working with basic tools now." His long fingers moved gently over the child's wounds. "I never thought I would say this, but I wish we had weapons to fight back." Lisa looked around the makeshift medical station. They had moved the wounded into the basement when the Vorthons started targeting medical facilities. The concrete walls were thick enough to stop most energy weapons, but they would not hold forever. "Maybe we can make weapons," Lisa said quietly. "These medical scanners use focused energy beams. If we could modify them." Doctor's eyes widened. "You want to turn healing devices into weapons? That goes against everything we believe." "Sometimes you have to choose between your beliefs and your survival," Lisa replied. "The Vorthons aren't going to stop. They're going to kill everyone here unless we fight back." Outside, they could hear the sound of Vorthon patrols marching through the streets. The enemy soldiers were searching every building, looking for hidden resistance fighters and valuable technology. Their heavy boots made echoing sounds on the broken pavement. Lisa had learned a lot about the Vorthons in the past 3 days. They were a militaristic species that believed in conquest through overwhelming force. They had thick, armored skin and stood nearly 8 feet tall. Their weapons were designed to cause maximum fear and destruction, but they also had weaknesses. Lisa had observed their patrol patterns and noticed that they relied heavily on their sensors and communication systems. If those could be disrupted, the Vorthons would be vulnerable. "Doctor, how many medical scanners do we have?" she asked. "Perhaps 20 in working condition," Dr. Yathinel replied. "Why?" "Because I have an idea." Lisa gathered the remaining Cytherian civilians in the basement. There were about 60 of them, mostly scientists, doctors, and their families. They looked at her with hope and fear, waiting for her to speak. "The human fleet is coming," she told them. "But they're still weeks away. We need to survive until they get here, and that means we need to fight." An elderly Cytherian scientist named Valtar shook his head. "We are not warriors, Lisa Martinez. We have never killed anyone. We do not know how." "I'll teach you," Lisa said. "I was a Marine before I became a diplomat. I know how to fight, and I know how to survive." She explained her plan. The medical scanners could be modified to emit high-intensity energy bursts. They would not be as powerful as real weapons, but they would be enough to disable Vorthon soldiers, if used correctly. "We'll hit their patrols one at a time," Lisa continued. "Fast strikes, then we disappear. We can't win in a straight fight, but we can make them afraid to walk our streets." Some of the Cytherians looked uncertain, but Dr. Yathinel stepped forward. "I will help. These monsters killed my students. They destroyed our hospital. If we must fight, then we will fight." Over the next 2 days, Lisa worked with the Cytherian scientists to modify the medical equipment. They were brilliant engineers, and once they understood what needed to be done, they worked with incredible skill. The modified scanners could now deliver energy bursts powerful enough to overload Vorthan armor systems. The first test came when a four-man Vorthan patrol entered the hospital ruins. Lisa and 3 Catherians were waiting for them, hidden behind overturned medical beds. The Vorthans moved carelessly, convinced that the weak Catherians posed no threat. Now, Lisa whispered. 4 energy beams struck the Vorthan soldiers simultaneously. Their armor sparked and failed, sending them crashing to the floor. The Catherians stared in amazement as their improvised weapons actually worked. "We did it," Dr. Yethanel said in wonder. "We actually fought back. This is just the beginning," Lisa replied. "Now we take their equipment and hit them harder." Word of the successful attack spread quickly through the underground network of survivors. Other groups began modifying their own medical equipment and staging similar attacks. The Vorthans, who had expected easy conquest, found themselves facing an unexpected resistance. General Vekmor, the Vorthan commander, stood in his command ship orbiting New Haven and stared at the tactical display with growing frustration. Red markers showed the locations of recent attacks on his forces. In the past week, he had lost 37 soldiers to what his intelligence officers called primitive resistance fighters. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These creatures are herbivores. They have no military training." His intelligence officer, a younger Vorthan named Krekvil, consulted his datapad. "Sir, we believe the human diplomat is organizing them. Our sensors detect human technology signatures at several attack sites." Vekmar's eyes narrowed. "One human is causing all this trouble?" "It appears so, sir. The Catherians respect her, and she has military training. She is teaching them to fight." The general slammed his fist on the command console. "Then we eliminate her. Launch hunter-killer teams into the city. Find this human and bring me her." Head. Down in the colony's underground tunnels, Lisa was training another group of Catherians in basic combat tactics. They were quick learners, and their natural grace made them surprisingly effective fighters once they overcame their reluctance to use violence. "Remember," she told them, "we're not trying to win battles. We're trying to survive until help arrives. Hit fast, hit hard, then disappear. Make them afraid to patrol alone." Young Catherian named Jethrim raised his modified medical scanner. "Lisa Martinez, when will the human ships arrive?" Lisa checked her chronometer. 2 more weeks. Maybe less. "If they push their engines hard, can we hold out that long?" Lisa looked at the determined faces around her. These peaceful people had learned to fight because they had no choice. They were protecting their families and their way of life against an enemy that showed no mercy. "We'll hold out," she said. Firmly. "Because we have to. Because our friends are coming and we're going to be here to greet them." Above them, Vorthan ships continued their bombardment of the city. But in the tunnels and ruins below, the resistance was growing stronger. Every day, the Catherians were learning that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to fight for it, and in the depths of space, 47 human warships raced toward New Haven at maximum speed. Their crews eager to show the Vorthans what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. The space around New Haven had been quiet for 3 weeks. The Vorthan fleet floated in orbit like hungry predators, their dark ships casting shadows on the planet below. General Vekmor had grown comfortable with his easy conquest, spending his days planning how to divide the spoils among his officers. That comfort ended at exactly 800 hours when his sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. "General, we have multiple hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is coming." Vekmor rushed to the tactical display, expecting to see a small rescue force or perhaps a diplomatic vessel. What he saw instead made his blood run cold. 47 ships were dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the blue and white colors of the Terran Federation. "Impossible," he whispered. "The humans are too far away." But the evidence was right there on his screen. 3 massive dreadnoughts led the formation, their weapon ports already glowing with charged energy. Behind them came heavy cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. It was not a rescue mission. It was a war fleet. On the bridge of the USS Dominion, Admiral Morrison studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Vorthen fleet was spread out in a loose orbit around New Haven, clearly not expecting any threat. They had made the classic mistake of getting comfortable. "Signal from the Vorthen flagship, sir," reported his communications officer. "They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions," Morrison smiled grimly. "Open a channel to all ships, both human and Vorthen?" The channel crackled to life, and Morrison's voice filled the space around New Haven. Every ship in both fleets heard his words clearly. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Federation, 3rd Fleet. You are ordered to cease all hostile actions against the Catherian colony and withdraw from this system immediately. You have 30 seconds to comply." On the Vorthen flagship, General Vekmer snarled at the communication console. 30 seconds? This human thinks he can give orders to the Vorthen Empire? We outnumber them. His tactical officer shook his head. "Sir, our sensors show 37 ships against their 47, and their ships are configured for war, not occupation." "It doesn't matter," Vekmer snapped. "We are Vorthen warriors." "We do not retreat from lesser species." He activated the fleet communication system. "All ships prepare for battle. We will show these humans what happens when they interfere with Vorthen conquest." The 30 seconds passed in tense silence. Then Morrison's voice came again, calm and deadly. "Your time is up. All ships, engage at will." The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves. Captain Amy Rodriguez led the first wave, her destroyer USS Defiant racing ahead of the main formation. Behind her came 5 more destroyers, their engines burning bright as they closed the distance to the Vorthen fleet. "Target their command ship," Rodriguez ordered. "Let's cut the head off this snake." The Defiant's torpedo tubes opened, and a spread of 6 plasma torpedoes streaked toward the Vorthen flagship. The enemy ship's shields flared as they tried to absorb the impact. But the human weapons were designed to penetrate Vorthen defenses. General Vekmer watched in horror as his flagship shuddered under the assault. "Return fire!" All ships return. Fire, but the human fleet was already moving. Captain Steve Johnson's heavy cruiser USS Thunderbolt came in from the side, its main guns blazing. The Vorthen ships were built for intimidation, not maneuverability. They were too slow to respond to the human tactics. "This is impossible," Vekmer muttered as another spread of torpedoes slammed into his ship. "How are they moving so fast?" His tactical officer was studying the human formations with growing alarm. "Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're coordinating their attacks with precision we've never seen." Down on New Haven, Lisa Martinez and the Catherian resistance were monitoring the battle from their hidden shelter. The communication equipment they had salvaged from Vorthen patrols was picking up transmissions from both fleets. "They're here," Lisa whispered, tears streaming down her face. "The fleet is here." Dr. Yethanol placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Your people came for us? They really came?" The Catherians around them listened in amazement as the human fleet tore through their oppressors. They had heard stories about human military might, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. In space, the battle was turning into a massacre. The Vorthen ships were powerful, but they were designed for fighting enemies who followed traditional combat rules. The humans didn't follow any rules except winning. Captain Lisa Chun of the USS Retribution led her squadron in a daring attack on the Vorthen supply ships. Instead of engaging the enemy warships directly, she targeted their support vessels, cutting off their fuel and ammunition. "No supplies, no fight," she told her crew as they watched Vorthen ships drift helplessly in space. Captain Mark Davis commanded the USS Vengeance in a direct assault on the Vorthen cruiser line. His ship's armor was scarred from enemy fire, but he pressed the attack relentlessly. "They want to fight?" Davis growled as his ship's guns pounded a Vorthen heavy cruiser. "Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget." The coordination between human ships was perfect. When one vessel was damaged, others moved to protect it. When an enemy ship was weakened, multiple human vessels would focus fire to destroy. it quickly. It was like watching a deadly dance performed by masters of their craft. General Vekmar's flagship was burning. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. His pride had cost him everything. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the other ships are requesting permission to retreat." Vekmar looked at the tactical display. His once mighty fleet was being torn apart by enemies who fought like demons. The humans didn't just want to win, they wanted to send a message. "Signal the fleet," he said through gritted teeth. "General, retreat. All ships withdraw immediately." But Admiral Morrison had other plans. "Pursuit course," he ordered. "Don't let them escape. I want every ship that attacked New Haven to be destroyed or captured." The human fleet spread out in a hunting formation, chasing the fleeing Vorthan ships across the system. Some of the enemy vessels were too damaged to escape and were quickly destroyed. Others managed to reach the hyperspace jump point, but even they didn't escape unharmed. Captain Rodriguez's destroyer caught up with a fleeing Vorthan cruiser just as it was preparing to jump. Her torpedoes disabled its engines, leaving it drifting in space. "This is Captain Rodriguez to Vorthan vessel. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to Galactic law. Continue to resist, and you will be destroyed." The Vorthan captain chose surrender within 6 hours of their arrival. The human fleet had destroyed 22 Vorthan ships and captured 8 more. The remaining 7 had escaped to hyperspace, badly damaged and running for their lives. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the last of the enemy ships disappear into hyperspace. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. "Signal the planet," he ordered. "Tell Ambassador Martinez that the cavalry has arrived." General Vekmar's damaged flagship limped through hyperspace, its hull scarred and its engines barely functioning. Around him, the remains of his once proud fleet struggled to keep up. Of the 37 ships that had attacked New Haven, only 7 had escaped the human assault. "Status report?" Vekmar demanded, his voice hollow with defeat. His engineering officer consulted a damaged display. "Sir, we have lost primary power on 3 decks. Life support is failing in sections 4 through 7. We need immediate repairs or we will not survive the journey home." Vekmar stared at the tactical screen showing their pitiful retreat. Behind them, somewhere in normal space, the human fleet was probably celebrating their victory. The general had never experienced such a complete defeat in his 40 years of military service. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a priority message from Vorthan Command. They want a full battle report." "Tell them we are regrouping," Vekmar replied. "Do not mention the extent of our losses until we reach friendly space." But even as he spoke, Vekmar knew his career was over. The Vorthan Empire did not forgive failure, especially not failure on this scale. He had lost 30 ships and thousands of soldiers to an enemy force that had appeared from nowhere and destroyed them in less than 6 hours, back in the New Haven system. Admiral Morrison was not content with simply driving off the Vorthan fleet. He stood in the command center of the USS Dominion, studying star charts that showed Vorthan military installations throughout the sector. "Captain Rodriguez," he called out, "take your destroyers and hit their supply depot at Kepler Station. I want their ammunition and fuel reserves destroyed." Rodriguez smiled coldly. "With pleasure, Admiral." "What about their repair facilities?" "Captain Johnson will handle those with his heavy cruisers. Captain Chun, you'll take your squadron and destroy their forward operating base at Delta Prime." Morrison's eyes were hard as steel. "The Vorthans thought they could attack our allies without consequences. It's time to show them how wrong they were." The human fleet split into multiple task forces, each with a specific target. This was not just about saving New Haven anymore. This was about making sure the Vorthan Empire never again considered attacking human allies. Captain Steve Johnson led his 3 heavy cruisers toward the Vorthan repair station at Sigma 7. The facility was lightly defended, with only 4 patrol ships guarding it. The Vorthans had never expected anyone to attack their infrastructure so far from the front lines. "All ships, target the main docking bays," Johnson ordered. I want this place completely unusable. The USS Thunderbolt's main guns opened fire, sending streams of plasma energy into the station's superstructure. The other cruisers followed suit, their coordinated bombardment turning the repair facility into a cloud of expanding debris. "Facility destroyed, Admiral," Johnson reported back to Morrison. "No survivors detected?" At the same time, Captain Lisa Chen was leading her squadron against the Vorthan forward base at Delta Prime. This target was more heavily defended, with a dozen warships and multiple defensive platforms. But the human ships had the advantage of surprise and superior tactics. "Use the asteroid field for cover," Chun instructed her captains. "Hit them from multiple angles. Don't give them a chance to coordinate their defense." The USS Retribution darted between the floating rocks, its weapons blazing. Behind it came 3 more destroyers, each taking a different approach vector. The Vorthan defenders tried to respond, but they were confused and disorganized. Within 2 hours, the forward base was nothing but wreckage floating in space. Chion's squadron had lost no ships and suffered only minor damage. The Vorthans had lost everything. On New Haven's surface, Marine Colonel Tony Williams led the cleanup operation. His troops had landed as soon as the space battle ended, moving quickly to secure the colony and arrest any remaining Vorthan soldiers. "Resistance is minimal," Williams reported to Admiral Morrison. "Most of the enemy ground forces surrendered as soon as they learned their fleet was destroyed. We've secured all major facilities and freed the civilian prisoners." Lisa Martinez met the Marines at the colony's main landing pad. She looked tired and dirty after weeks of fighting in the underground tunnels, but her eyes were bright with relief and gratitude. "Colonel Williams?" she asked, approaching the tall Marine officer. "That's right, ma'am." "Ambassador Martinez, I presume?" Williams saluted her formally. "The Admiral sends his compliments and asks about the status of the civilian population." "Most are safe," Lisa replied. "The Catherians are tough, even if they don't look it. But we've got wounded who need medical attention, and the colony's infrastructure is badly damaged." Williams nodded. "We brought medical teams and engineering units. Your people will have everything they need." As Lisa walked through the colony with the Marine colonel, she saw human soldiers working alongside Catherian civilians to clear debris and tend to the wounded. The contrast was striking, the heavily armed Marines moving with gentle care as they helped the peaceful aliens. Dr. Yathenel approached them, his long face showing amazement. "Ambassador Martinez, these human soldiers, they are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" Lisa asked. "After seeing them fight, I thought they would be savage and brutal. But they are treating our wounded with such kindness." The doctor gestured toward a Marine medic who was carefully bandaging a young Catherian's arm. "They fight like demons, but heal like angels." Colonel Williams overheard the comment and smiled grimly. "We fight hard to protect what we care about, Doctor. That includes our friends." 3 systems away, Captain Amy Rodriguez was leading her destroyer squadron in a lightning raid on the Vorthan supply depot at Kepler Station. The facility was massive, containing enough ammunition and fuel to supply a dozen fleets. It was also completely undefended. "Sensors detect no military vessels," her tactical officer reported. "The station appears to be operating normally." Rodriguez felt no sympathy for what was about to happen. The Vorthans had chosen to attack peaceful civilians. Now they would learn the price of that choice. All ships target the main storage tanks. Full spread of torpedoes. The destroyers unleashed a devastating barrage, their weapons tearing into the storage facility. Secondary explosions rippled through the station as fuel tanks and ammunition magazines detonated. Within minutes, the entire complex was consumed in a ball of fire that could be seen from orbit. "Supply depot destroyed," Rodriguez reported to Admiral Morrison. "That should slow down their next offensive." Back on his flagship, Morrison received reports from all his task forces. Every mission had been a complete success. The Vorthan military infrastructure in the sector was crippled, and their ability to launch future attacks was severely compromised. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from Vorthan High Command." They're requesting a ceasefire and offering to negotiate. Morrison studied the tactical display showing the locations of his various squadrons. His fleet had struck 5 major Vorthan installations in less than 12 hours, destroying billions of credits worth of equipment and killing thousands of enemy soldiers. Tell Vorthan High Command that we'll consider their request, Morrison replied. But first, they need to withdraw all their forces from Kitherian space and pay reparations for the damage they've caused. He paused, looking at the image of New Haven on his screen. The colony was damaged but not destroyed, thanks to the courage of Lisa Martinez and the Kitherian resistance. And tell them that if they ever attack our allies again, we won't stop with just their border installations. We'll take the war to their homeworlds. The message was transmitted across space, carrying with it a promise that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. 6 months after the battle for New Haven, the colony looked completely different. Where once there had been ruins and burning buildings, now there were new structures that combined Kitherian and human architecture. The main plaza had been rebuilt, with a beautiful garden at its center, surrounded by buildings that served both species. Lisa Martinez stood on the balcony of the new diplomatic center, watching children play in the plaza below. Kitherian youngsters with their pale blue skin ran alongside human children, their laughter filling the air. It was a sight that would have been impossible before the war. "The ceremony is about to begin," Dr. Yathinel said as he joined her on the balcony. The Kitherian doctor now wore a medal on his chest, awarded by the human government for his bravery during the siege. "Are you ready?" Lisa smoothed her formal diplomatic uniform and nodded. Today was the official signing of the Mutual Defense Pact between the Terran Federation and the Kitherian Republic. It would make their alliance permanent and ensure that what happened to New Haven would never happen again. In the plaza, a stage had been set up with flags from both worlds flying side by side. Admiral Morrison stood at attention in his dress uniform, his chest covered with ribbons and medals. Beside him stood colony leader Zathara, who had become something of a hero to his own people for his decision to call for human help. The crowd gathered in the plaza was a mix of species. Kitherians sat next to human settlers who had chosen to make New Haven their new home. Marine Colonel Tony Williams was there with his wife, who had arrived on one of the supply ships. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood with her crew, many of whom had decided to extend their tours of duty to help with the reconstruction. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lisa announced from the podium, "today we celebrate not just the survival of New Haven, but the birth of a new kind of alliance. An alliance based on friendship, mutual respect, and the shared belief that peaceful people should be protected from those who would do them harm." The crowd applauded as Admiral Morrison stepped forward to sign the treaty documents. His signature was bold and clear, a promise written in ink that the Terran Federation would stand by its friends. Colony leader Zathara signed next, his long fingers carefully forming the Kitherian symbols that meant trust and unity. As he set down the pen, he looked out at the mixed crowd and smiled. 6 months ago, we thought we were weak because we chose peace over war, Zathara said. We learned that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect what you love. Our human friends showed us that warriors and healers can be the same people. The ceremony continued with speeches from both governments, but the real celebration happened afterward. Human engineers worked alongside Kitherian scientists to demonstrate the new technologies they had developed together. The Kitherians had shared their advanced medical knowledge, while the humans had provided defensive systems and military training. Dr. Yathinel led a tour through the new hospital, which was twice the size of the original and equipped with both human and Kitherian medical technology. We can now treat injuries that would have been impossible to heal before, he explained to a group of visiting dignitaries. The combination of our knowledge has created something greater than either species could achieve alone. In the harbor, the new human naval base was already operational. The USS Guardian, a heavy cruiser commanded by Captain Mark Davis, floated at anchor alongside 2 Kitherian research vessels that had been converted into hospital ships. The message was clear. This system was under protection. Captain Steve Johnson, now promoted to Commodore, oversaw the base operations from his office overlooking the harbor. His job was to coordinate patrols throughout Cytherian space and respond to any threats that might emerge. So far, the sector had been remarkably quiet. Any word from Vorthen space? Johnson asked his intelligence officer. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh consulted her datapad. Their border fleets have pulled back to defensive positions. Intelligence suggests they're still dealing with the damage we caused to their supply lines. Some of their outer colonies are experiencing shortages. Johnson nodded with satisfaction. The Vorthen Empire had learned a painful lesson about the consequences of attacking human allies. Their request for a ceasefire had been accepted, but only after they agreed to pay substantial reparations to the Cytherian Republic and withdrew all their forces from the neutral zone. The War Crimes Tribunal was still ongoing, with captured Vorthen officers facing justice for their attacks on civilian targets. General Leckmore himself was serving a life sentence on a prison world. His military career ended in disgrace. In the colony's new community center, Lisa Martinez was teaching a class to young Cytherians who wanted to learn about human culture. The students were fascinated by human history, especially the stories of how humans had overcome their own violent past to become protectors of peace. "Why do humans fight so hard for their friends?" asked a young Cytherian named Jethrim, who had helped with the resistance during the siege. Lisa thought about the question carefully. "Because we know what it's like to be alone and afraid. We know what it's like to face enemies who seem too powerful to defeat. When we see others in that situation, we remember our own struggles and we can't walk away." She looked around the classroom at the eager young faces. "Your people taught us something important too. You showed us that strength isn't just about weapons and ships. It's about holding on to your values even when everything seems hopeless. You never stopped being healers even when you had to learn to fight." As the sun set over New Haven, families from both species gathered for the evening meal. Human and Cytherian restaurants had opened side by side, sharing recipes and creating new fusion dishes that neither species had imagined before. Admiral Morrison sat at a table with colony leader Zathara, enjoying a meal that combined human spices with Cytherian vegetables. The conversation was relaxed, two leaders who had become genuine friends despite their different backgrounds. "The Parliament on Earth wants me to establish more bases in this sector," Morrison mentioned between bites. "They're concerned about other aggressive species who might get ideas." Zathara nodded thoughtfully. "The Council supports this decision? We have received requests for protection from 3 other peaceful species who heard about what happened here. Perhaps this alliance can grow into something larger," Morrison smiled. "An alliance of peaceful species protected by those willing to fight for peace? I like the sound of that." In the center of the plaza, workers were putting the finishing touches on a monument that would commemorate the siege and liberation of New Haven. The statue showed a human soldier and a Cytherian scientist, standing together, looking up at the stars. The inscription was written in both languages, to those who called for help, and those who answered with more than was asked. As night fell, the lights of the rebuilt colony twinkled like stars. In the harbor, the human ships kept their vigil, while in the hospitals and laboratories, Cytherians and humans worked together to heal and discover. The war was over, but the alliance it had forged would last for generations. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When you threaten humanity's friends, you don't just face human weapons. You face human determination, human loyalty, and human refusal to abandon those who trust them, and that every species now understood was a force more powerful than any fleet.